Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg here with Ryan Aselta. And the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles will not be visiting the White House today. A small contingent of Eagles players, fewer than 10 according to reports, along with owner Jeffrey Lurie, had planned to make the trip. That came to an end after the president issued a statement saying, in part, the Philadelphia Eagles are unable to come to the White House with their full team to be celebrated. They disagree with their president because he insists that they proudly stand for the national anthem. Wide receiver Torrey Smith, who was a member of the Eagles championship team, responded, saying on Twitter, "So many lies, shaking my head. Here are some facts. 1, not many people were going to go. 2, no one refused to go simply because Trump insists folks stand for the anthem. 3, the president continues to spread the false narrative that players are anti-military." Meanwhile, the Eagles' official statement on the matter simply praised what the team accomplished without any mention of the disinvitation. Trump later doubled down on Twitter, of course, saying the Philadelphia Eagles football team was invited to the White House. Unfortunately, only a small number of players decided to come, and we canceled the event. Staying in the locker room for the playing of our national anthem is as disrespectful to our country as kneeling. Sorry.
All right, for more on the Eagles and President Trump disinviting the Super Bowl champs to the White House, let's welcome in the MMQB's Jonathan Jones. And Jonathan, it's implied in President Trump's tweet that the Eagles actively protested last year. Now, no Eagles took a knee during the season. I believe one player remained in the locker room last year. Can you help make clear how the Eagles engaged in social and political conversation and if any of them took a stand?
Yeah. Again, the entire thing is disappointing, right? But to your point about the Eagles, obviously, 2 of the most outspoken players across the NFL, Malcolm Jenkins and Chris Long, and of course, as we see there, Malcolm Jenkins was and is such a big part of the Players Coalition. Obviously, he raised his fist throughout the early part of the season, decided against it once the NFL worked out a deal with the Players Coalition somewhere to the tune of $90 million for certain funds and charities and different philanthropic endeavors in communities, underserved communities of need. And then, of course, Chris Long, I went up to Charlottesville, Virginia, where Chris grew up, where he went to college at the University of Virginia, and where he donated his game checks to start a scholarship for 2 kids to go to his private high school. And I saw the impact that it could have visiting with the Boys and Girls Club there. And so, I've seen with my own eyes what these guys have done, what they are doing, what they could do. And so for President Trump to really kind of belittle it and take it down to honestly not even what it really even is disappointing, but it's also exactly what we have come to expect from this president.
Elaborating on that a bit, how bothersome is it to you to see the narrative being shaped as if players are actively disrespecting the country and the military?
Yeah, I think only fools really believe that anymore, right? I mean, Colin Kaepernick, when he was doing it in that season, he was very, very clear every time he was asked about it, what he was kneeling for. The same, of course, with Eric Reed. All of these guys who have protested, I believe, have been rather clear on it, that it has been about police brutality, that it has been about criminal justice reform and inequality in the criminal justice system, how police, by and large, when it comes to brutality, attack the black and brown bodies more than the white bodies. And so that's what this was all about. It was never about the military. I think everyone who is smart should know that. And I think that President Trump, whether he's doing it intentionally or maybe he just doesn't know, I understand that he's playing to his base and people who may not want to know or have no reason to find out what these protests are really about.
Jonathan, what about the NFL owners here? How much of this do you put on them for putting the issue back in the headlines with this new anthem rule?
Yeah, I think we all talked, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago when this anthem policy came out. It was obviously a very bad policy. It was a 5 or 6 pronged policy that was left completely open to interpretation when it comes to what respect for the anthem and the flag is. Are you in the stands taking a picture of the gigantic flag on the field? Are you respecting the anthem and the flag by doing that at that moment? There's so many loopholes in that. So that was obviously number one. Number two, of course, was anytime you try to make a deal with this man, he is either going to renege on the deal or he's going to make you look foolish. And when you try to have a policy with a bunch of half measures in place that attempts to satisfy all parties, you ultimately satisfy no one. And it was not surprising that the next day the president came out and said that he wasn't totally satisfied with the anthem policy. Like, all of this goes back to, this is an easy target for President Trump. 70% of the NFL is made up of black players. This is a league that he couldn't get into 20-some years ago. He understands that his base, made up of mostly white conservatives and certainly a lot of white male conservatives, that is what the plurality of NFL viewers are. And so this is kind of a very easy connection for Donald Trump to make. And so he's just playing the hits.
Jonathan, the Astros, a couple college football teams, have visited the White House recently, while the Warriors and Eagles have chosen not to go or been disinvited. Where does this go from here? Have we seen the end of teams making a White House visit under this administration?
You know, I'm not sure. It's a great question. It's interesting because the Warriors have been so outspoken. It's interesting because the Eagles have been so outspoken, and they have one of the few owners in the NFL who has spoken out against Donald Trump, be it even in a private recorded conversation as reported by the New York Times. But you get a couple of these other teams, you know, their owners really do like Donald Trump. Their quarterbacks and their star players really do like Donald Trump. You look at these college football teams, these kids don't have a say. So the leanings of a lot of people in power, the people who could make these decisions, usually align with Donald Trump. And so while two of the big teams, obviously the Warriors and the Eagles, do not align with Donald Trump, that may kind of just be the luck of the draw. If you get another team, a different NBA team, and there aren't many NBA teams, but when you certainly look at the NFL, I could certainly see a number of different NFL teams, had they won Super Bowl 52, that would be headed to Pennsylvania Avenue today.
Of course, the story has generated a ton of response online. Well, the NFL Players Association this morning released a statement which said, in part, this decision by the White House has led to the cancellation of several player-led community service events for young people in Washington, D.C. area. NFL players love their country, support our troops, give back to their communities, and strive to make America a better place. Jonathan, the NFLPA reportedly didn't want to put schools in an uncomfortable position of having to answer questions on politics, which is what led to the cancellations. Instead, the Eagles are going to hold their OTAs. Is there another way the Eagles could have spun this more positively?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Eagles obviously could have gone to D.C. and done what the Warriors did last year. But as you mentioned, they didn't want to put the schools in that position, and that's admirable, and I understand that. And so you just get back to work, and that's really all that you can do. I think that there are a lot of players on this team that are really walking the walk and not just talking the talk, as shown there. And so, they'll continue to do what they have done on and off the field. And if the president wants to disinvite them, that's okay. They'll get back to work today, and they'll do what they have been doing in the community all offseason.
Now, it feels like we've heard from everyone except the NFL itself. What do you expect from the league, and what do you think they should say?
I think that they should keep quiet. I don't think I think they're in a no-win situation. They've already capitulated to Donald Trump. We have seen that their statements and their policies, as I mentioned earlier, are half measures. And so this trying to play both sides is not going to work out for them. They should basically treat this as a states' rights issue. This is up to the Eagles, and this is up to the president. My name's Paul, and this is between y'all. And so that's what Roger Goodell, in my opinion, should do. Now, if he's going to do that, I don't know, because the NFL clearly likes to be a little meddlesome. I don't think that they should have even instituted an anthem policy. I thought that it was slapped together haphazardly. I didn't really even think you needed an anthem policy. So a response from the league, I think, would, one, I would not expect it to be very good, and two, I don't find it to be necessary.
I'm definitely with you there on the policy. Jonathan, appreciate your insights as always. We now welcome in Philadelphia Mayor James Kenney. Mayor, after this news broke, you released a statement saying the Eagles are active members of the community who stand for what they believe in. Then on Trump himself, you said disinviting them from the White House only proves that our president is not a true patriot, but a fragile egomaniac obsessed with crowd size and afraid of the embarrassment of throwing a party to which no one wants to attend. The president is claiming this is about an issue. You obviously do not believe that to be the case. Why do you think he's made the NFL, and now the Eagles in particular, such a central topic for him?
Because his twisted mind, he thinks it's to his advantage. There's nothing that the president could say or do that would stop me from watching the NFL or watching our Eagles. So he's trying to continue to divide this country so he can run it in a dictatorial style that he believes he should run it in. This is a democracy, and everyone has a right to their beliefs and have a right to stand up for their beliefs. That's abhorrent to him. And that's why he should have never become president.
Mayor Kenny, of course, the Eagles won the Super Bowl back in February. You've spent a lot of time with many of the Eagles players. What has the team done for the city and also meant to the city over the last 4 months, especially off the football field?
Well, I mean, the Eagles generally are good corporate citizens who are involved in the very fabric of our city. But each individual player also has individual issues that they stand up for. Malcolm Jenkins on criminal justice, and Chris Long on criminal justice, Lane Johnson, Carson Wentz on hunger and food availability. I mean, these are real people who are doing real stuff in our communities. I mean, when people denigrate athletes sometimes for being pampered and spoiled, but these guys are not. They're regular people who care about regular people, and I'm very proud of them, and I'm glad they didn't go to the White House because it would have sullied their reputation.
1960s athlete protest leader Dr. Harry Edwards, who orchestrated the Mexico City Olympics Black Power Salute, shared with us his suggestion on how athletes should handle visits to the White House, saying each player should take a survivor of a school/urban center shooting in hand, or take a child of an incarcerated parent, or take an immigrant child torn from the arms of her mother and walk the halls of Congress, visiting with the people who have the position and power to impact issues. What do you see as a productive alternative to team White House visits?
We have to remember that the president disinvited the team, so it wasn't like the team decided. There were a number of players who wanted to go, and God bless them, and they're right to do that. The president, I guess, didn't want to be standing there with 10 or so players because that would have damaged his fragile ego. So he decided to cancel it. I do believe that the pro sports team members have a right and a platform to step up and speak up on issues that are surrounding our country, issues that are affecting our country. And I think they have a responsibility to do that. And people who argue they should just dribble and shut up are wrong. I think that our players on all of our teams here in Philadelphia do that all the time. And the Eagles especially are prominent in the community for their good works.
Philadelphia Mayor James Kenney, really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, man. Go Birds.
Well, in the NHL, the Washington Capitals are now 1 win away from winning the Stanley Cup after last night's 6-2 win in Game 4. The Caps now lead the series 3-1 over the Vegas Knights. And Robin, of course, only one team in NHL history has ever come back from 3-1. Let me ask you this, though, about the Knights. If they don't come back to win, can they still view this season as a success?
Of course, right? If we're removing what we've seen and all the topics about, hey, they could be the first expansion team to do this, is it the best story ever? If you were to say before the year began, an expansion team would make it to the Stanley Cup final, wouldn't that by any measure be a success? So to remove that simply because one specific outcome was not achieved, to me, sounds like something we just drum up to do.
I'm with you here, because I think if the Capitals do go on to win the Cup, the story of the year is still the Vegas Knights for becoming an expansion team, going on this run that no one expected, getting to the Cup finals in a year, let's not forget, what happened in October in Las Vegas. This team has provided a city that was hurting after those shootings with a tremendous community boost. They are the story of the year in the NHL and one of the stories of the year in sports, no matter what happens the rest of the year, 2018.
No doubt about it. Now, a story in the Champions League game was Liverpool goalkeeper Leroy Sane not having a strong performance. And now we may have a reason why he suffered so much in that Champions League final. As it was revealed, he suffered a concussion during the game. FIFA guidelines call for a sideline evaluation and for a player to be removed from the game if symptoms of a concussion are found. Obviously, this was not the case here. Does soccer have an issue with how concussions are handled?
Yeah, they got a problem on their hands here because obviously this was irresponsible on the club's part. The player is never going to take him out of a game, especially the Champions League final. We all saw the hit. The team saw the hit. He's got to at least be evaluated. And this was negligent because, he was sent to the United States in Boston to get his head examined here. Clearly, the doctor said, yes, he was concussed during that game against Real Madrid on the 26th. This is almost a week and a half later they gave that diagnosis. Something has to be done to better take care of the players because it's the job of the doctors and the team to protect the players against themselves in that situation.
A concussion in and of itself is a traumatic brain injury. When you're talking about an injury to the brain, you must exercise as much caution as possible. The one thing I will say as a caveat is I think we have to be careful drawing these direct lines between football and these other sports. Every single sport should treat concussions seriously. But what differentiates some of these sports from football, of course, is that they're not collision sports to the degree where you are at risk of head trauma on every single play. Doesn't mean you shouldn't make sure that these guys don't have a concussion before they go out there, whether it's basketball, soccer, anything. But it's not quite the same as the overall concerns that we have with football.
Right, not football, but I'd argue that soccer is second on that list, ahead of baseball, ahead of even hockey, ahead of basketball.
The header plays in particular.
The header has become a big problem. Head injuries have become a problem in soccer, so much so that at the youth level, they've outlawed heading altogether till you get to a certain age. So it's a problem that's going to continue to grow in this era of concussions. Major League Baseball, Robin, they held its draft on Monday night, and while no surprise, Auburn's Casey Mize went #1 overall to the Tigers. Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray was drafted 9th overall by the A's. This was kind of a shocker. Murray says he's going to play for the Sooners in 2018 football. What do you think? Should he take the money and go pro in baseball, or should he continue playing football?
He should absolutely play baseball and take the money. Everybody can make their own decision. He should do what he wants to do with his life. But if I'm advising him, if, I had his ear, he would, or I would tell him at least, he should never step foot on a football field again. I mean, we were just talking about the potential head trauma you can suffer in football. He's looking at $4.7 million to play baseball. That's the guarantee for signing on the dotted line. Not to mention, he obviously has the ability, so you would hope for his sake he would have a long career and he could have it in a way where he's not really putting his body and his mind on the line.
Yeah, and I guess this kid's a heck of a baseball player. Coming out of high school, he would have been drafted if they thought he would have signed. He supposedly will play football and then commit to baseball playing more full-time. But I agree. Don't risk the fall. The head injury, whatever injury it could be this fall. The $4 million signing bonus, which was what slotted at #9 last year, plus the contract. Hey, the average career life of an NFL player is 3.3 years. The average life of a baseball player's career is almost double that. Take the money, Kyler. Come on, man. Robin, not sure if you saw this last night, but the two Isaiah Thomases, yeah, you saw it. They were playing a game on Jimmy Kimmel Monday night, and this happened.
Do you know the name of that alien?
God, I've watched that numerous times, too. I'm like the Cavs. I'm going to get swept.
What do you think? Should Isaiah be saying things like that on national TV?
Well, it was a wisecrack in the moment and not a bad one. But if we are evaluating it seriously, no, Isaiah Thomas shouldn't be saying that. First of all, they got rid of him and got better immediately, right? This team was in total turmoil. He's traded away, and they get back to the NBA Finals. Second of all, we still don't know where he's going to wind up, being his free agency status and how poorly he played this season. So I don't think it's a great look to do anything to feed into the negative reputation that he sort of developed this year after having such a positive light shown on him 2 years ago in Boston.
Yeah, it's a bad look, and I'll answer that question. No, the Cavs will not get swept. It'll go at least 5 games. But Isaiah, get over it. He just Instagrammed last week on Thursday, the Throwback Thursday, a picture of him, LeBron, and the rest of the Cavs saying, let's go get it. You know, ha, 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 shaking my head. Dude, get over it. It didn't work out. Move on. You probably have a great career post-Cavs, but it's time to get past your time in Cleveland.
IT salty, I guess you could say. On Monday, the World Cup teams announced their full rosters, probably a few budding stars who were salty they were left out. Here's our list of the 11 best players whose teams left them off their World Cup roster this year.
Well, some sad news. The man responsible for the catch has passed away. Former 49ers tight end Dwight Clark died on Monday after a 3-year bout with ALS. Clark was just 61 years old and will forever be remembered in Niners history for hauling in the Joe Montana pass in the back of the end zone to win the 1981 NFC Championship game and really kickstart a San Francisco Super Bowl dynasty. Many of Clark's former teammates and friends expressed condolences on social media, including Tom Brady, who grew up a Niners fan and shared a story of being at the 1981 championship game and watching one of his idols, as he called him, in Clark, make that catch. He also shared a story of meeting Clark as a kid as they shared the same orthodontist. Brady expressed his gratitude towards Clark, saying, "I never forgot the impact he made on me, as all of our heroes do." Very sad news as Clark passes away at 61. And Robin, we talked a lot earlier in the show about head injuries, concussions, the effects. There has been some links of head injuries, chronic brain injury, to ALS. And no one's saying this is definitely the case here with Dwight Clark, but 61 years old, gone way too soon.
Well, of course. And you know, you can say pretty unequivocally you might be endangering your lifespan by playing the sport of football, and hopefully that didn't contribute to what happened to Dwight Clark. But it's a sad situation, regardless, of course, when anyone dies. And in the moment, I think we should be remembering what he did do out on the field. You referenced 1981 a lot. That's the year I was born. So obviously, I wasn't old enough for this to be imprinted on my mind in live action. But it is so iconic. It feels like I witnessed and watched that live, as it is a catch that will live forever.
An iconic moment, but also most importantly, it really generated what the Niners did. It started that dynasty run for the San Francisco 49ers.
We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow.